Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the greatest capitalist in the history of the United States of America, Elon Musk. Oh! The future is gonna be amazing.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing for Elon Musk and the other billionaire oligarchs in Trump's orbit who are already reaping the financial rewards of the Trump sequel, while the rest of us can look forward to hardship, according to Musk. Also tonight, with less than 2 months until Trump takes office, we bring you our readout guide to navigating autocracy. Some of you have questions about what will happen to women, what will happen to same-sex marriages, what will mass deportation look like? Well, we have some of the very best experts to answer many of those questions. Plus, safeguarding democracy. Democratic governors are joining together to offer a unified resistance to the Trump administration. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker joins me. And my conversation with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on the Democrats' path back to power and what she learned from the AOC Trump voters. And we begin tonight with one of the most iconic heists of the 20th century, the Great Train Robbery of 1963, when a group of at least 12 men robbed a British mail train heading from Glasgow to London. They struck at 3 a.m., manipulating the train signals and cutting railway telephone wires, boarding the train with clubs and iron bars, smashing windows, you name it, and then escaping with a staggering £2.6 million, equivalent to $70 million today. The armed robbery would spawn books and TV shows. There was Prison Time and Fugitives, even an anonymous insider, and a massive manhunt for the robbers, which included Ronnie Biggs, who underwent plastic surgery in Paris after escaping from prison to evade capture. It became known as the heist of the century. It was big. But what we are seeing now is bigger and even more audacious. And it is happening right now in plain sight. It's an open-air bank robbery, this time by the super rich, who are already even richer from Trump's win. Here's the Bloomberg Billionaires Index, the morning after the election. It's a daily ranking of the world's richest people. Among the top 10, and these names will sound very familiar, Elon Musk, ranked the world's richest person, is the biggest gainer. His wealth jumped by a whopping $26.5 billion. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos was another top gainer. His wealth grew by $7.1 billion. It's the biggest daily increase since Bloomberg's wealth index began in 2012. Collectively, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, and their top 10 ultra-rich friends added $64 billion to their fortunes. Kind of makes sense now, right? Why some of them didn't endorse a candidate this year, despite supporting Democratic candidates and causes in the past, or why Bezos defended his decision to withhold the Washington Post's endorsement of Vice President Kamala Harris. And it also makes sense why Elon Musk, who has arguably done more than anyone to help elect Trump, put in more than $75 million right into MAGA coffers and basically bought Twitter to turn it into a right-wing propaganda loudspeaker, the loudest on the internet, in fact. Turns out Trump's promise to make America great again is simply a cover for his and his billionaire buddies' plot to turn us into an oligarchy, ushering in an era of extreme deregulation, laws that keep big business in the driver's seat and labor in the back, tax cuts for the rich and the super rich, and privatizing everything from education to health care so that big corporations can charge you for all of it and go from billionaires to trillionaires, all backed by the most pro-rich and pro-corporate Supreme Court in history, literally constructed by Leonard Leo and the Heritage Foundation, a court that will probably boast 2 young new members when Clarence and Alito inevitably step down to go on lifetime paid vacation starting on January 20, 2025, which maybe we should rename Money Train Day instead of Inauguration Day. And America's new oligarchs did all of this by lying to working class people of color and getting them to fight each other out here in these social media streets and ignore the real bad guys. The oldest tactic of white supremacy, where working people are scraping by for a piece of the pie while the rich eat the whole entire pie and laugh all the way to the bank. Oh, and by the way, the people who will suffer include many of the people who voted for Trump, hoping he'd toss them some coins. But the joke's on them, too, fueled by disinformation, racism, misogyny, apathy, ignorance, and in some cases, just plain economic desperation. America opened the bank vault and let the robbers in. It's the greatest heist in history, brought to you by Trump and the new ruling oligarch class. I recently asked Ali Velshi and David K. Johnston to explain what these billionaires plan to do now that they essentially own this country.
This is about government contracts and deregulation, right? Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos both have government contracts. People have canceled their subscriptions. The Washington Post, forget it. The Washington Post is not the money-making venture here. It's the government contracts that Amazon Web Services has. Cancel your Prime subscription before you cancel your Washington Post stuff. But they've got back-end web things that they supply the government and space, right? So you've got that side of things, and then you've got the massive deregulation. There's a woman named Lena Khan, 35 years old. She's the head of the Federal Trade Commission, not brought any new laws in. She's just decided to enforce the laws on the books about, keeping competition alive. Everybody in business America hates her. She'll be gone, one assumes, soon enough. These companies want to merge. They want to take over other companies. They want no new regulation. They don't want the government involved in their business, and that's what they're going to get. It's why big oil supported Donald Trump. It's why big tech is supporting him. The deregulation here is going to be the biggest part of this. The wealth gains are quite something. Never seen anything like it. But the control that they're going to have over the economy is going to be bigger.
Yeah, and David K. Johnston, what do the working class people get out of all of that?
They get their pockets picked. We already have, as I've written about in my economics books, a whole series of stealth ways that the government reaches in on behalf of very wealthy people, and they take a penny here and a quarter there and a dollar somewhere else, and they redistribute it to people at the top. Now, there is one thing you said, Joy, I want to address. I think it's very important. There's no such thing as deregulation. There is only re-regulation, which enhances the power of the oligarchs, which shields them from responsibility for what they do, which helps them get rid of competition so that they have, better than a monopoly, a oligopoly, a triopoly, or a duopoly. Because if there's two or three companies with very complex contracts, with the cell phone companies, they can raise prices more than a monopolist. And that's their goal, not to be accountable, not to pay taxes. And by the way, Trump did not pass a tax cut law. He passed a tax deferral into the future with interest because he financed it with borrowed money. That's not a tax cut, a deferral with interest.
And the other piece of what they seem to want, I mean, I'm looking at just the numbers here, the number of crypto people who were elected. Crypto spent a lot of money, Ali, to try to get this government that they're going to get. The crypto industry spent more than $130 million on the election. Bitcoiners celebrate as $40 million in a campaign brought down Sherrod Brown, who was one of the small number of anti-crypto members of the United States Senate. 253 pro-crypto candidates have been now elected to the House of Representatives on Tuesday compared to 115 anti. They want to mess with the dollar and flip it to this cryptocurrency, which in many senses is kind of a pump and dump, right? They get rich.
It's a little bit bananas, but there's a whole, Donald Trump's entire company is a pump and dump, right? Like that's exactly what's going on here. But keep in mind, look at the trajectory of the big oil that wants deregulation, right? Drill, baby, drill, and don't put rules on me. Don't have this fake China hoax that's called climate change, all that. So a traditional company like oil, all the way into tech and crypto. It's all the same stuff. These are the things that are ahead of us that we haven't quite figured out how we're supposed to manage. They would rather have somebody say, don't manage it. This is a free economy. Let it do what it has to do. And yet Elon Musk had the temerity to say openly that people are going to suffer a little bit. There's going to be a little bit of hardship, but we're going to get through it. There's not going to be any hardship for Elon Musk. There's not going to be any hardship for Jeff Bezos. That's the thing. That's the trick, right? The idea is that you all will have some hardship. Stock market is doing very well. It's had its best week all year. That's amazing. But, only the top 10% get most of the benefits from more than half the benefits in the stock market go to the top 10%. So this whole system has been rigged under our noses for this to work. And unfortunately, these are not the basis of the polarizing discussions we had. So a lot of people have sort of missed this, that we've been undoing regulation in this country for a while, and that's what's going to happen as a result of it. They've got free reign. They got 4 years now. You can do a lot of damage in 4 weeks in the regulatory environment, let alone 4 years.
Absolutely. And then on top of that, David, they're going to do massive, they're going to fire tens of thousands of federal employees, which is going to increase the unemployment rate. And then they're going to do mass deportation. And that is going to cost, what's the estimate here, $968 billion in little more than a decade if they tried to deport all 13 million undocumented immigrants in the United States. So the deficit skyrockets up. Talk about what that does to the cost of everything. If you just delete 13 million people who are heavily centered in things like the agriculture industry, the construction industry. I know they don't think those 50,000 federal bureaucrats are going to go out and pick all the lettuce. Who's going to do that work? It means you're going to pay a lot more for food on top of the tariffs that are going to make everything really expensive. Your thoughts on this mass deportation?
Not only are you going to pay a lot more for food and meat, but a lot of the people who came here without permission or with limited permission that Trump wants to remove have American-born children. So we're not only going to separate these families, but your property taxes are going to go up because they're going to have to put millions of children into foster care, into orphanages, and we're going to have to bear the bill for that through our property taxes or sales taxes. In addition, when children grow up in circumstances like that, the likelihood that we will have mental health and criminal problems in the future go up. So the costs of this are way beyond the estimates that focus on just deporting people. And of course, Donald Trump said it'll be bloody. And I don't see how it can be anything but that. So it is shooting yourself in the foot, maybe both feet, to do some of the things Trump wants to do. And if he goes all out doing Project 2025, which Steve Bannon now says, just like Vladimir Putin did after he conquered Crimea, of course that's our plan.
Yep.
Then hopefully the damage, much as I feel for the people who will be hurt, will be so bad that we will see a huge reversal in Congress in 2 years.
Assuming we have elections.
Plenty of time to do damage, assuming we have elections. Plenty of time to do damage between now and then.
But this is, Joey, you remember I carried around that Project 2025 the entire time?
Yes.
And I had all these people telling me, you're lying. You're gaslighting us. Donald Trump says it's not his plan. The ink isn't dry on the election results, and guess what? It's absolutely his plan. It's a 180-day turnaround. It's 180 days. That's what they say. From January 20th, 180 days. They're not going to get all of it done, but they can get 60% of it done in 180 days, and we were warned.
And the thing is, because they have to do shock and awe. There's a reason that presidents try to do most of their big policies in the first 100 days. You're taking advantage of whatever the honeymoon. But also it's a shock and awe thing, right? And very quickly, to stay with you for a moment, Ali, they've now already cooked in, and we're going to talk more about this on Monday. They've now gotten people of color to fight each other and not pay attention to each other, and creating hate among groups of color, so that when they do start hurting people and taking people out and putting people in camps, now we have a Hutu Tutsi world where where no one will care. They're trying to create conditions where when they start hurting undocumented people, the other people in the country, including other people of color, won't care.
And it's tried and true, right? It's worked throughout history. It's worked throughout history. You tell Shias that you don't like Sunnis. You tell Hutus that you don't like Tutsis. They were all married to each other, by the way. They lived together. Everything was fine. Same thing in America. We were all living together quite well until someone told us these are black jobs and these are immigrant jobs and these are Hispanic jobs and these are white jobs. It's a fantastic job of getting people to fight with each other when, as you put it very well, they're nibbling, they're looking for some coins to be tossed to them, and the rich folks are taking the entire pie. That's exactly what has happened here. While we were not watching, someone has created what is going to become what really is perilously close to becoming an oligarchy. And David's point is correct. You don't have to be as obvious as Vladimir Putin is about this thing. You can have 3 companies control your phone services. You can have 3 companies do something. You're going to pay more. They're going to get richer, but they can and pass off the idea that you're all going to suffer a little bit. It's okay. We'll get through this. That's what they're telling us. Thanks, guys.
Cheech Marin did a movie once about accidentally being pulled across the border as if he wasn't an American citizen. Well, guess what? That's going to come true. There will be American citizens who will end up being deported because they're not going to do this with precision. They're going to do it with a meat axe approach.
We recognize that a second Trump administration is filled with many unknowns. With just a couple of months before that begins, we wanted to provide you with the best possible information so you are prepared for whatever comes. Some of you have questions about what will happen to women, what will happen to same-sex marriages, what will happen to low-income people, what will mass deportation look like. Donald Trump has said that he plans to defund anything with DEI in it. Any city or police department that refuses to participate in mass deportations, and any schools that recognize transgender students and don't follow his patriotic mandates. Well, I asked MSNBC legal analyst Joyce Vance whether he can legally get away with all of that.
Yeah, so I think we have to start by saying Trump has a very aggressive, very broad agenda. And like everyone who goes into government, he will meet the reality that you can only do a limited number of things. If everything is a priority, then you have no priorities. So at some point, even Donald Trump will be forced to pick. And then in this specific area that you're talking about, using essentially withholding federal funding, you know, Donald Trump tried that before. He has threatened that in the past. He threatened, for instance, the mayor of the city of Seattle with pulling federal funds during the Black Lives Matter marches and during that era. And met with very mixed success, frankly, because state and local officials, among all of us, are perhaps the most well-positioned to push back. But if Trump sets a top priority and decides he's going to pull funding, say for public institutions or for more likely private institutions that continue with DEI, then he can probably push that forward with some level of success. There will, however, be court challenges, and increasingly we see great signs that the lawyers are well prepared and gearing up to be the heroes again.
Let's talk about the states. Donald Trump has promised to do mass deportation, but he's got to get these people from somewhere. And states like California are saying they're going to protect, Maryland are saying they're going to protect people. How much can a governor like Gavin Newsom actually protect their residents?
A lot. So I've lived through this, Joy. In 2011, Alabama passed what it billed as a deport yourself law, HB 56, that criminalized all sorts of previously legal behavior by people who were here without status and American citizens who wanted to help them. And that was a real shot across the bow. But in reality, if you had a sheriff in a county who didn't want to call federal agents when they encountered people who couldn't prove their citizenship status, then it was very difficult for the federal government to engage. And even with willing officials, again, it's a question of resources. How many people can you detain? How quickly can courts process them? You know, there's been some suggestion, it's included in Project 2025, that Trump would bring the military to bear to assist at the border. Well, that's something that has real legal dimensions to it. And although I know we live in an era where many people have lost confidence in the courts, this is again something that the lawyers will take to court. And unless we really abandon all principle, this inappropriate deployment of American troops on U.S. soil is something that should still be contested successfully in court.
Since Donald Trump will likely have control of the House as well as the Senate, his party, could they make it illegal for women to cross state lines to get an abortion?
So look, I think this is a tough one. I think that women need to be fully prepared for worst case scenarios to surface. Whether that's done strictly on a state-by-state level, which is what the Supreme Court authorized in Dobbs, or whether we see something national, something darker. We could see enforcement of the Comstock Act, which prohibits mailing any material that focuses on family planning. So that's much broader than just tools and drugs that are used for abortion. That could extend to birth control. and other measures. And there are clearly forces in American society that believe this is a desirable result. This is an important time for American women to consider their options, including this risk. You know, this is an issue that hasn't come up to the Supreme Court in this posture, right? Can you limit people from crossing state lines? This court will have the opportunity to decide that issue.
Thank you, Joyce Vance. Our readout guide to navigating autocracy continues in a moment with how women can protect your reproductive rights and fight misogyny in Trump's repressive America. Don't go anywhere. These past few weeks, the women of America have been forced to witness not only an adjudicated sexual abuser be elected president, but then see him offer some of the highest positions in government to men who faced accusations of their own. As the New York Times points out, Trump has selected a defense secretary, an attorney general, a secretary of health and human services, and an efficiency czar, all of whom have been accused of variations of sexual misconduct and, like the president-elect, deny them. This has only added to the pain and fear that a lot of women have already been feeling in the aftermath of the election, on top of facing an onslaught of online abuse and harassment with phrases like, "Your body, my choice," and "Get back to the kitchen," surging across social media. And with so many still unknown, you probably have a lot of questions about what a second Trump administration will mean for women, what it will mean for access to basic reproductive care, to birth control, IVF, even no-fault divorce, and how to best protect yourselves through all of it. Well, on this show, we want to provide you with the best possible information so you are prepared to navigate whatever comes your way.